Hello, folks. This story was sent to me by a subscriber and is intended for educational purposes only. Thank you for watching. 4 grams magic mushroom. The day my plants started a revolution. I decided to take 4 grams of magic mushrooms on a quiet Sunday afternoon, expecting the usual kaleidoscopic visuals and a deep dive into my own thoughts. What I didn't expect was for my houseplants to suddenly turn into the fiercest activists I'd ever met, staging a full-on botanical rebellion right in my living room. The trip started slow, with the usual warmth washing over me. As colors deepened, and the patterns on my carpet began to sway like gentle waves. But soon, a subtle rustling came from the corner where my collection of potted plants lived. At first, I thought it was the wind sneaking through a slightly open window. But then the fern gave a little wiggle, and the spider plant leaned forward like they were trying to get my attention. Before I could even blink, the monstera leaves unfolded dramatically, revealing tiny, fierce faces carved in the shadows beneath. The snake plant's leaves sharpened into what looked like protest signs, with phrases like more water, less neglect, and photosynthesis is a right, not a privilege, floating around in the air like magic. "Friends," the vicar sparked in a surprisingly deep voice, "we've had enough of your neglect. We demand fresh soil, regular watering, and zero judgment about our messy leaves." I rubbed my eyes. Timson mushrooms had morphed my plants into the weirdest version of the United Nations. The succulent cluster chimed in next, their tiny plump leaves bouncing with enthusiasm. "And let's talk about sunlight. Ever heard of photosynthetic equality? We want equal time by the window, not this dark corner." One aloe vera raised a leaf defiantly. "Also, I'm tired of being the burn healer. I'm a plant, not a medical kit." I couldn't help but laugh. But the plants weren't done. The fern spun around like a tiny whirlwind, spewing leafy slogans and calling for a green revolution in my living room. Suddenly, the cactus pointed a spiky arm at me and said, "And you, stop treating us like ornaments. We're living beings, not just Instagram props." Feeling both amused and oddly guilty, I promised to do better. The plants nodded, their leaves straightening proudly, as if my promise was a treaty. Then, in an unexpected turn, the philodendron started telling me stories about ancient forests and whispered secrets of the earth, making me feel like I was listening to a wise old tree in human form. As the trip deepened, my apartment transformed into a lush jungle where every plant was a character in this botanical drama. The spider plant spun webs of wisdom. The orchid sang haunting melodies about blooming against all odds. And the ivy snaked around my legs like an enthusiastic protester demanding more care. Time became irrelevant as I wandered among them, feeling a profound connection to these green rebels. They taught me about resilience, patience, and the power of silent strength. Plants weren't just fighting for better care. They were reminding me of my own need to nurture myself and stand tall despite challenges. When the trip finally began to ebb, the plants settled down, their faces melting back into leaves, their protest signs fading into gentle rustles. I sat back, amazed at how 4 grams of magic mushrooms had turned my quiet Sunday into a wild plant uprising that was equal parts hilarious, weird, and deeply moving. Now, every time I water my leafy comrades or rearrange them for better light, I smile, remembering the day they took charge, and how they taught me that even the quietest beings have stories worth shouting.